Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. And then tomorrow's the anniversary of the Deity's Flower Festival in San Diego.
Wow, fantastic. Maitali, what's happening in Atlanta?
Nothing much, Marge. We're having a program with His Holiness Bhakti Swami Maharaj today, so
Great.
yeah.
Never a dull moment.
Yes, Maharaj.
In the summertime, there's so much going on
Yes, Maharaj. Like we had His Grace Gaurang Prabhu and His Grace Hari Parshad Prabhu come like last week, so it's been like pretty busy here.
nonstop.
Yeah.
Brajras, are we good? Let the youth jam begin.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to UTM. Today we have a very special day. We're going to be, again, doing, as usual, our shlokas, but we're going to be spending a little more time with our Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. We've been doing it for a very long time, and a few weeks back, we had a really nice discussion on Prabhupada Lilamrita, discussing how it's impacted us, and also how Prabhupada's life has been a wonderful lesson. And so we want to keep that going and continue speaking about Prabhupada Lilamrita and Srila Prabhupada's own journey this week as well. And then, of course, we'll have lots of time for our discussion and reflections at the end. And that's over to you, Maharaj.
Great. Thank you very much. Where are we with the shlokas?
So we've been keeping up with our Chad, chapter 9 of Bhagavad Gita, and then we usually do some other shloka set with that when we have more time.
Fantastic. Why don't we start with the English today? I'll do the first five. Anybody else wants to volunteer, you can put your hand up and I'll pass it off to you. Then we'll go back and we'll do the Sanskrit. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. And yet, everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I'm the maintainer of all living entities, and although I'm everywhere, I'm not a part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation.
Understand that as the mighty winds blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature. And at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again. And under my will, it is annihilated at the end. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again.
Fools to ride me. when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Others, who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge, worship the Supreme Lord as one without a second, as diverse in many, and in the universal form.
But it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I am the butter and the fire and the offering. I am the fire of this universe, the mother, the supporter, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sama, and Yajurvedas. I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place and the eternal seed. O Arjuna, I give heat and withhold and send forth the rain. I am immortality, and I am also death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. Those who study the Vedas and drink the Soma juice, seeking the heavenly planets, worship me indirectly. Purified of sinful reactions, they take birth on the pious, heavenly planet of Indra, where they enjoy godly delight.
But when they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasure, and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of the three Vedas achieve only repeated birth and death. But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack, I preserve what they have. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually only worship me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true nature, my true transcendental nature, fall down. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors will they'll go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. Those who worship me will live with me.
One offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. In this way, you will be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all, but whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination.
He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, and Shudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. How much more this is so of the righteous Brahmanas, the devotees, and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. Engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me.
Now we'll go back into the Sanskrit from the beginning. And I'll start with the first 10. And then whoever wants to do after that. You go 5 each. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Idam tu te kuyatamang prabhakshamyana suyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yajgatva mukshashe shubhat rajavidya rajakuhyam pavitram idam uttamam pratyaksha bhagamam dharmyam susukham kartumavyayam Shraddhana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapya Mam Nirvartante Mrityu Sangsara Vartmani Maya Tatamidang Sarvam Jagadavyakta Murtina Mastani Sarva Bhutani Nachaham Teshvastitaha Nachamatstani Bhutani Pashyame Yogamaishvaram Bhutabrinach Bhutasto Mamatma Bhutabhavanaha Yata Kashastato Nityam Vayu Sarvatra Mahan Tata Sarvani Bhutani Matstani Tyupadaraya Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Gyanti Mamikam Kalpakshay Punasthani Kalpadau Vistrujamyaham Prakritim Swam Avashtabhya Vistrujami Punah Punaha Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam Avasham Prakritir Vashat Nachamam Tani Karmani Nibadnanti Dhananjaya Udasina Vadasinam Asaktam Teshu Karmasu Mayadhyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanena Kaunteya Jagad Viparivartate
अवजानन्ति मां मूढा मानुषीं तनुमाश्रितं परं भावम् अजानन्तो मम भूतमहेश्वरम् मोघाश मोघकर्माणो मोघज्ञानविचेतसः राक्षसीम् आसुरीं चैव प्रकृतिं मोहिनीं श्रिता महात्मानस्तु मां पार्थ दैवीं प्रकृतिमाश्रिता भजन्त्यनन्यमनसो ज्ञात्वा भूतादिमव्ययम् सततं कीर्तयन्तो मां यतन्तश्च दृढव्रता ममस्यान्तश्च मां भक्त्या नित्ययुक्त उपासते ज्ञानयज्ञेन चाप्यन्ये यजन्तो माम् उपासते एकत्वेन पृथक्त्वेन बहुधा विश्वतो मुखम्
अहं क्रतुर् अहं यज्ञ स्वाधा हम अहम आश्रितम् मन्त्रोऽहम् अहम् एवाज्यम् अहम् अग्निरहम् हुतम् पिताहम् अस्य जगातो माता धाता पितामहा वेद्यं पवित्रम् ओङ्कारा ऋक्षामा यजुः एव च गतिर्भर्ता प्रभु साक्षी नवशा शरणं सुहृत् प्रभावा प्रलया स्थानं निधनां बीजम् अव्ययम् तपामि अहं वर्षां निघ्राणामि उत्सृजामि च अमृतं चैव मृत्युश्च सदसच्चाहमर्जुन
Trividyamam somapa.
ते विद्यमां सोमपः पुतुपा यज्ञैरिष्ट्वा स्वर्गतिं प्रार्थयन्ते ते पूर्णयाम् असद्य सुरेन्द्रलोकम् अश्नन्ति दिव्यान् दिवि देवभोगान्
ते तं भुक्त्वा स्वर्गलोकं विशालं क्षीणे पुण्ये मर्त्यलोकं विशन्ति एवं त्रयीधर्ममनुप्रपन्ना गतागतं कामकामा लभन्ते अनन्यश्चिन्तयन्तो मां ये जना पर्युपासते तेषां नित्यभियुक्तानां योगक्षेमं वहाम्यहम् येऽप्यन्यदेवता भक्ता यजन्ते श्रद्धयान्विता तेऽपि माम् एव कौन्तेय यजन्त्यविधिपूर्वकम् अहं हि सर्वयज्ञानां भोक्ता च प्रभुरेव च न तु माम् अभिजानन्ति तत्त्वेनातश्च्यवन्ति ते यान्ति देवव्रता देवान् पितॄन्यान्ति पितृव्रता भूतानि यान्ति भूतेज्या यान्ति मद्याजिनोऽपि माम्
पत्रं पुष्पं फलं तोयं यो मे भक्त्या प्रयच्छति तदहं भक्त्युपहृतम् अश्नामि प्रयतात्मनः यत्करोषि यदश्नासि यज्जुहोषि ददासि यत्तपस्यसि कौन्तेय तत्कुरुष्व मदर्पणम् शुभाशुभफलैरेवं मोक्षसे कर्मबन्धनैः सन्न्यासयोगयुक्तात्मा विमुक्तो मामुपैष्यसि समोऽहं सर्वभूतेषु न मे द्वेषोऽस्ति न प्रियः ये भजन्ति तु मां भक्त्या मयि ते तेषु चाप्यहम्
Unamas.
अपि चेत् सुदुराचारो भजते मामनन्यभाक् साधुरेव समन्तव्य सम्यग् व्यवसितो हि स
क्षिप्रं भवति धर्मात्मा शश्वशान्तिं निगर्षति कौन्तेय प्रतिजानीहि न मे भक्तप्रणश्यति मां हि पार्थव्यपाश्रित्य येऽपि स्युः पापयोनयः स्त्रियो वैश्यास्तथा शूद्रास्तेऽपि यान्ति परां गतिम् किं पुनर्ब्राह्मणा पुण्या भक्ता राजर्षयस्तथा अनित्यम् असुखं लोकम् इमं प्राप्य भजस्व माम् मन्मनां भव मद्भक्तो मद्याजी मां नमस्कुरु मामैवश्यस्युक्तैवाम् आत्मानं मत्परायणः Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambhade Rajavidya Rajaguhya Yoga Nama Navamodhyaya Hari Om. Could we read the purport to number 15? I find this to be a very interesting verse. Yana yagnena chapyanya yajanto mam vipasate ikatvayana pratakvena bahuda bishtomukam. This verse is related to a verse in the 7th chapter that you might remember. Chatur vida bhajante mam jana sukritina arjuna. Arto jignasa artar dignani cha bharatar shava. Does everyone remember that one? From this life or last life? The best among Bhart's 4 kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the absolute. Remember those 4? Haridas, you remember? 4 kinds of people surrender to Krishna. Okay, then this is another list. Jnana yagnena chapyanye yajantu mam upasate katvena pratakvena bahuda vishutomukam. Jnana yagnena, by cultivation of knowledge, cha also, api certainly, anye others, yajanta sacrificing, mam me, upasate worship, ekatvena in oneness, pratakvena in duality, bahuda in diversity, vishvata mukham and in the universal form. Translation: others who engage in sacrifice by cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse in many and in the universal form. Purport: this verse is the summary of the previous verses. The Lord tells Arjuna that those who are purely in Krishna consciousness and do not know anything other than Krishna are called Mahatmas. Without flipping to the verse, does anybody remember what that verse is? As a clue, it starts with that word, Mahatma. Does anybody know that verse? Mahatmanas tumam partam daivim prakritim ashrita pajantyananya manaso gyatva bhutidam avyayam. Okay, I'll keep going. Yet there are other persons who are not exactly in the position of Mahatma, but who worship Krishna also in different ways. Some of them have already been described as the distressed, the financially destitute, the inquisitive, and those who are engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. But there are others who are still lower, and these are divided into 3. 1, he who worships himself as one with the Supreme Lord. Keep this in mind, it'll be on the quiz. 2, he who concocts some form of the Supreme Lord and worships that. And 3, he who accepts the universal form, the Vishvarup of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and worships that. Out of the above 3, the lowest, those who worship themselves as the Supreme Lord, thinking themselves to be monist, are most predominant. Such people think themselves to be the Supreme Lord. And in this mentality, they worship themselves. This is also a type of God worship, for they can understand that they are not the material body, but are actually spirit soul. At least such a sense is prominent. Generally, the impersonalists worship the Supreme Lord in this way. The second class includes the worshippers of the demigods, those who, by imagination, consider any form to be the form of the Supreme Lord. And the third class includes those who cannot conceive of anything beyond the manifestation of this material universe. They consider the universe to be the supreme organism or entity and worship that. The universe is also a form of the Lord. Observations. Sharing means caring. Share any observations that you have about anything I just said, the connection of those 2 verses, this purport. Yes, Brajarath Bhavana.
When Prabhupada says that those who worship themselves as a supreme lord is the most predominant. Is that still something we see in the Western world? Is it maybe more subtle where we don't like notice it very directly?
Yeah, people really don't have much philosophy in the West. They're influenced, though, by such ideas and have a sense sometimes that the ultimate goal of the Bhagavad Gita or any of the Eastern philosophy is to become God or merge into God, or that we already are God. We just forgot somehow. Don't you find people like that in your dealings with the world? Prajras Bhavana.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it sometimes, but generally what I've seen are people who don't care about any. But when they do think about Eastern philosophy, they get kind of confused because there's a lot of gods that are out there, and I think sometimes they take the position of, you know, I'm God, but I've seen that more like in India, but less over here.
Yeah, true. I was with Dianeti once years ago. We're doing book distribution behind a table in front of a Indian store, and this man came over and he said to Dianeti, "I'm God." And Dianeti said, "You're God-like." And the guy said, "I'm God." The guy said, You're God-like." Back and forth, back and forth. The guy walked away, and then he came back about 20 minutes later, and he bought a Bhagavad Gita. Is that people get mixed up because people don't teach the Bhagavad Gita as it is. It's rare. Haridas, what observations do you have for us today?
Raj, I was seeing like you said number two or number one, he who worships himself as one with the Supreme Lord. So basically, I was reading in Srimad Bhagavatam in one of the purport that Prabhupada states that the people of the material world nowadays sometimes they think that Vyasadeva just wrote, it was not Vyasadeva who wrote Bhagavatam, and he just made something, someone else just wrote the Bhagavatam and made something up. So because of that they think that this is wrong, and then they go to some other guru who they think is correct even though he may be wrong, and then that guru may tell them that you are God and everyone is God. So in that sense he starts worshipping himself and thinks of himself as the supreme personality of God.
Well, that's an unfortunate set of circumstances, and in that people can be misguided. It's not so easy to be God, Prabhupada points out. Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill without practicing weightlifting, he said. He was just a baby when he killed Putana and so forth. Ria, what do you got?
I remember this reminded me of like a class by Srila Prabhupada I was listening to recently, and he said like an argument we could use against Mayavadis is like one of the Lord's names is Achyuta, which means that he never falls. But if you think that you're God, then you're not because God doesn't fall down. So you, and if God forgets, then what kind of God is that?
Such a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he also, Prabhupada once said in that same vein, he's saying one of those self-proclaimed gods, he said he had a toothache. He had to go to the dentist. He said, how is that? Prajras Bhavana.
Another question I had, this is from a friend from a few weeks ago. I was talking to them about like offering foodstuffs to Krishna, and she mentioned how uh, where in Christianity they offer their food to God, but that food may be like beef or something that like Krishna of course would not really like, but they don't really know they've been instructed to offer whatever they eat to God, and they are grateful for having that food. And so I was thinking when we saw this, like he who accepts like the universal form, the Vishvarupa, where it's more of an impersonal God that's like there aren't really that many descriptions of him or any at all. What benefit is there for someone who does that kind of service, where it's not in accordance to what we would say as offering something, but they're sincerely offering it in their own heart, do they eventually, is it the same benefit as like offering prasadam, or do they eventually get to a point where they learn more and offer prasadam in some other future life?
If they're sincere, they come to another level. And that can be supported by the verse, Yet koroshe yadashnashi juhosi dadasiyat. If you can put that up, Yet tapasyasi konteya tat kurushva manarpanam. And in this verse, it's in response to your question. Krishna says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, do as an offering unto me. And I'll read Prabhupada's purport. He says, thus it is the duty of everyone to mold his life in such a way he will not forget Krishna in any circumstance. Everyone has to work for maintenance of his body and soul together, and Krishna recommends herein that one should work for him. Everyone has to eat something to live. Therefore, he should accept remnants of foodstuff offered to Krishna. Any civilized man has to perform some religious, ritualistic ceremonies. Therefore, Krishna recommends do it for me, and this is called archana. Everyone has a tendency to give something in charity. Krishna says, give it to me. This means that all surplus money accumulated should be utilized in furthering the Krishna consciousness movement. Nowadays, people are very much inclined to the meditational process, which is not practical in this age. But if anyone practices meditating on Krishna 24 hours a day by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra around his beads, he is surely the greatest meditator and the greatest yogi, as substantiated by the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. That purport won't line up as much because Prabhupada's giving the context of somebody who's offering it with a clearer understanding of what they're doing. And there is also a case to be made of offering or doing activities in the mode of ignorance. But if they're in ignorance, but they're offering some gesture to God, there's possibility based on Krishna's reciprocation with every living entity that they can come to better association and better understand how to make an offering to Krishna. But it can start with whatever they're doing at the present moment. That's also based on the idea of the Vedas being a huge project. You find that in certain parts of the Vedas, there's exaltation of demigods as being supreme in certain Puranas. For people who are in a lower mode of nature, they have to start somewhere. They have to offer something to gain faith in the process. And this Prabhupada's explanation of the various Puranas and various modes that present various kinds of offerings. So from that point, they may gain some traction and gradually come up to the mode of passion and the mode of goodness. And then what's most likely is in those circumstances, if they come in contact with devotees, then they can make a transition. I know that it's a little roundabout the way I explained it, but hopefully that helps.
That was helpful. Thank you.
One more observation from anybody who would like to exercise their intellects and expound upon anything that she has heard. Oh, Manya's here. You just got back from Sankirtan?
Yes, Gurmash, just got back. Yeah, I had something to share. I was thinking of it more as on a positive light that Krishna is so kind that wherever we are, he just expands himself and there's different steps to approaching him. And even if people are in the mode of ignorance or passion, they have that approach to reach Krishna and worship him one way or the another. So I was just appreciating that even people who practice or, in Christianity or Buddhism, and even when we approach them, we can say that Allah or any God that they believe is also they're indirectly worshiping Krishna. and that's comforting in some sense.
The purport's very liberal sounding, isn't it?
Yes.
This purport that we're looking at right now just probably says at least they're worshiping God in some way. That's ultra liberal. Because we have in the Sri Upanishad, those who worship demigods go to the darkest regions of ignorance and so forth. So it really depends how you frame it. But yeah, it's such a nice point you made. And we do see, just like today when we were on book distribution, we met one of the first guys we met was from East Africa. He was a Muslim, but he was really open-minded. And you can't tell. It has just because they have a specific conception or they're part of a specific group. It really depends on their individual level of advancement, how much they can appreciate. Okay, well done, everybody. Thank you very much. We did our Chad. If nothing else good happens today, at least we chanted one chapter. Nobody can take it back from us. So let's see if we can go to the next program, which is the Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. Is that correct? So how important is the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita? Just after Prabhupada left, senior devotees in the movement got together, formed the GBC, made a resolution that it's only Satsvarup Maharaj should write a biography of Prabhupada's life. It went on for many years. And there was a team that worked together. I can remember that the team called hundreds and hundreds of devotees, and they would interview them. I got interviewed. They interviewed everybody as much as possible to get us information. It's part of the joy of writing a book. Have any of you written a book? It's recommended. You should write as much as possible. I mean, you don't have to try to write a book, but you should write. And someday, if you have some ideas you want to compile, you can write a book. But one of the benefits of it is the research you do to write the book. Oftentimes it requires, let's say if you're writing a devotional book, you may interview devotees. The first book I wrote was called Our Family Business, and I had to talk to a lot of devotees, and it gave a good excuse to talk to them. I talked to Brahmananda a lot. I talked to Gargamuni, and I talked literally hundreds of devotees. Some who I'd never heard of before, but I realized that they had done significant service. For instance, there was one Vaishnavi in France who had done the lion's share of translation of Prabhupada's books into French, and she recounted the whole history of it for me. So anyway, Satsvarup Maharaj and his team, he had a lot of devotees working with him, and they would call and they'd interview and they'd record those interviews and then they'd go through them. And it's helpful to talk to as many people as possible. And sometimes it's not so helpful because sometimes people remember things differently. Even they were in the same room and they remember, they have their own versions. Nonetheless, when you talk to enough devotees and do enough research, then you can get a composite. That's what Satsvarup Maharaj did. And there's so much that more you could put in, because when you talk about Prabhupada's life, there are other incidents. So after they finished, then they did some additions to it later in later years. He also, you may or may not have seen this because I'm not sure how much available they were, but after he published the Lilamrita, he put out a bunch of little books with some of the parts that didn't make it into the big book. There was a series of small books of remembrance of Srila Prabhupada. And I understand that you were talking last week about the effect that it's having on you, hearing the Lilamrita. Am I correct about that, Brajras Bhavana?
We spoke on that 2 weeks ago.
I'm sorry I missed it. I was in Europe moving around to different places, so the timing of the UTM was difficult, but my loss. In any case, it's so impactful to read the historical accounts. Just give my 2 cents now, because it's a reminder how if you follow the instruction of your spiritual master and you're sincere and you continue the process, then you can be counted in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. And that's a big deal. What does Speaker do what Prabhupada did, which was beyond what most people can imagine doing? And he always claimed that it was simply because he followed the orders of his spiritual master. What section are you in now?
We're on chapter 10. This is Prabhupada. I think he just moved into the Chippiwada temple in New Delhi.
Fantastic. I volunteer to read the first 3 paragraphs. But you can vote on it. You have veto power if you want. Okay. Starting at Krishna Pandit or starting at Bhaktivedanta Swami? Krishna Pandit said he understood the importance of Bhaktivedanta Swami's Sanatan Dharma mission and his need for a Delhi office, and he vowed to supply his guest with whatever he required. Although Bhaktivedanta Swami was reluctant to ask for anything for himself, Krishna Pandit brought in a sitting mat and a low table, placing them before the pyramid, and he also brought a mattress. He showed Bhaktivedanta Swami how to operate the room's single light, a bulb and metal shade that hung from a cord and could be raised or lowered by hand. He brought a picture of Radha and Krishna that had been given to his guru by the Maharaj of Jaipur and set it within a niche in the wall, relishing that Bhaktivedanta Swami could gaze upon it with the eyes of a true devotee. Bhaktivedanta Swami had wanted a secure place for writing books before going to the West, and Lord Krishna had provided it. Now he could work either in Vrindavan or in Delhi. Almost immediately he began Bhakti Godhead again, serializing book excerpts from his previous manuscripts, while at the same time beginning Srimad Bhagavatam. When Krishna Pandit learned of his guest's lone struggles to produce Bhakti Godhead, he volunteered to help with some of the business aspects of the publication. Bhaktivedanta Swami was indeed gratified by Krishna Pandit's sincere help, and in appreciation he gave him an addition in his name, to his name, Hari Bhaktanudasa, one who serves the Lord's devotee. After 6 months in Chippiwada, Bhaktivedanta Swami wrote an appreciation in the temple's guest book.
I am pleased to write herein that I've come to Delhi from my headquarters 1/859 Keshi Ghat Vrindavan, Uttar Pradesh, purely on a spiritual mission to propagate the cult of devotional service of the Lord. I am more pleased to mention herewith that Sriman Sri Krishna Sharma Hari Bhakta Nudas has provided me a suitable room for my literary activities. I am publishing an English fortnightly magazine of the name Back to Godhead from this place, and the Nawal Prem Shaba, of which Krishna Ji is the HO and the Honi, the secretary is arranging for my daily lectures on the Srimad Bhagavad. Late Pandit Jyoti Prasad Sharma, father of Sri Krishna ji, was also known to me, and during his lifetime, whenever I used to come to Delhi, late Pandit Jyoti Prasad ji would provide me with residential place. His good son is also following in the footprints of his noble father, and as a secretary of the Nawal Prem Shaba, he is doing a good service in propagating the Ram Nama all over the city. In neat English script, Bhaktivedanta Swami went on to write that, in his opinion, temples should be used solely for educating the public in spiritual values, and that it was his personal mission to organize temples for that service. Temples are not meant for ordinary householders, engaged simply in the battle of animal propensities. Those who are actually engaged in the service or the predominator of the temple can only allowed to remain in the temple, otherwise not.
Trying to compose Srimad Bhagavatam at Chippywada while surrounded by sometimes noisy families with their non-devotional domestic habits had impressed upon him the importance of not using a temple as an apartment house. Despite his plans to settle down and begin the monumental task of translating Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhaktivedanta Swami was ready to preach in other ways also. In October of 1959, he had encountered a news article in the Times of India. Two American scientists had received the Nobel Prize in Physics for discovering the antiproton. According to one of the fundamental assumptions of the new theory, the article read, there may exist another world or an anti-world built up of antimatter. The other world reminded Bhaktivedanta Swami of the eternal spiritual world described in Bhagavad Gita. He was well aware that scientists were not speaking of antimaterial in the sense of eternal or spiritual, but he thought of using their scientific terms to capture the interest of scientific-minded people. He conceived of an essay to presenting the theistic science of Bhagavad Gita in terms of the antimaterial particle in the antimaterial world. It was a time when the whole world was talking of space travel. Indian news media had reported the Russian Sputnik 2 years ago, and the race for space had begun. Seizing on the current interest in space travel, Bhaktivedanta Swami described how by Bhakti Yoga the soul can travel past the farthest reaches of space to the eternal planets of the spiritual world, where life is blissful and full of knowledge. He gave his own fresh translations of Bhagavad Gita verses, couched in the language of the new physics, with its antimaterial particle and antimaterial world. The complete work, Easy Journey to Other Planets, was a 15,000-word manuscript, and he showed it to Hitsaran Sharma of Radha Press, but he didn't have enough money to get the little book printed.
In February of 1960, Bhaktivedanta Swami decided to print it himself in 2 installments of Back to Godhead. The articles drew an immediate response from a physicist at the Gujarat University in Ahmedabad, Mr. Y. G. Naik, who received Back to Godhead through the mail. Dr. Naik thought Bhaktivedanta Swami's application of the antimaterial principle was a really grand one. This is no doubt a classic essay. Dr. Naik was interested in further discussion on physics and transcendental knowledge, and Bhaktivedanta Swami replied with equal enthusiasm, finally asking the physicist to join him in distributing the cultural heritage of India to the whole world. Convinced that such an essay had great potential to interest educated English-speaking readers, Bhaktivedanta Swami worked hard to raise enough in donations to print Easy Journey to Other Planets as a paperback book. He finally did so in the fall of 1960. A foreword by Dr. N.K. Siddhanta, Vice Chancellor of the University of Delhi, arrived late but was included in the book as an insert. While everyone may gain from it, the student community in particular is recommended to read the book with care and practice Bhakti Yoga, which will help to strengthen the mind and build up character. I shall be glad to see this work read by the students and the teachers alike.
Several Indian scientists and scholars contributed reviews, noting the book's scientific cum spiritual vision and the method of speeding over space, not by mechanical acceleration of speed, but through physical, psychological effort and spiritual emancipation. It was only 38 pages, but it was his first publication aside from the one-page folded newspaper, Back to Gordon. He tried to distribute the little book effectively and gave one copy to Dr. P. Banerjee of the National Museum of New Delhi. Dr. Banerjee, he used to come to the library and consult some books, and I met him there. He gave me a book called Easy Journey to Other Planets. He gave me some copies to distribute for a rupee or half rupee each. I felt attracted to him. I thought he was a saintly person with pure devotion and without any outward glamour. He was not out to attract people just for name and fame. He had little support from anybody. He was living alone in a small room in Trippiwala. He was he was devoted to his studies. So I asked him, "Sir, if you have time and you don't mind coming to my house, could you kindly come on Sundays and recite the Bhagavad in my house?" He readily agreed. He was a great scholar. He was learned in the scriptures, and he was fond of communicating his ideas to others. He was a good speaker and a good conversationalist. He was very polite.
Whatever he said very distinctly. He spoke in Bengali and explained the essence of the verses. Sometimes he also referred to the commentaries just to give me more information. The others were not very much interested in commentary or in difficult aspects, but because he knew that I had some studies in the field, he explained the commentaries for my sake and for the sake of one or two other gentlemen who were also very elderly and very scholarly. The gatherings at my home would be attended by about 20 or 30 people, and he would continue his explanation for 1 or 2 hours. Then he would recite the Hare Krishna mantra, and we would also take part with the kartalas and harmonium. So it was a very enjoyable gathering because he made the difficult things very easy and he explained everything to all of us according to our needs. He knew that this much is for this person, this much is intended for this man, and this much for the others. After the meetings, he used to take a little rest in my house. I requested him to take meals at my house, but he said that he did not take meals prepared by others. But when he met my wife and she said she would be happy to prepare his meals, he said, "All right, I will take." And she used to prepare meals on Sundays when he would come.
Maithili, if you're reading, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. He sometimes asks me how to get more and more people attracted towards this field. But as a government worker, I could not persuade anyone very openly, nor had I the time to organize anything on a big scale for him. But he was not satisfied with that. He asked me if I could organize on a bigger scale. He knew that the people who attended the meeting at my house were very old, 70, 80. One was 90 years of age, retired, educated persons. It lasted for no less than a year. After that, he said he would be trying to go out to other places. He asked me to continue the gathering, but I said, "I'm not initiated." He said I could continue anyways. Because I was born as a Brahmana, he gave me the authority to continue for some time. But I could not continue because I used to go out. I lost all interest after he left. I was a government servant. Easy Journey to Other Planets had been like a warm up for his real work of presenting Srimad Bhagavatam. But now he was even more convinced for the need for books. To preach, he would have to have books, especially if he were to go to the West. With books, he could create a spiritual revolution. There was so much literature in the West, but Westerners had nothing like this, nothing to fill their spiritual vacuum.
Although he wanted to give as much time as possible to Srimad Bhagavatam, he decided to continue with the Back to Godhead by using excerpts from already existing books and manuscripts as articles. Occasionally, however, he would write and print a new article. In Relevant Inquiries, he wrote, "We are just trying to make an humble attempt to save the human by propaganda of Back to Godhead. This propaganda is not fictitious. If there if there is any real at all, this propaganda of Back to Godhead is the beginning of that era of reality. In a godless civilization, Bhaktivedanta Swami referred to Prime Minister Nehru complaints about the misuse of public funds in the name of religion. Bhaktivedanta Swami, he noted that although there were undoubtedly instances in which religious leaders were implicated in criminal offenses, if statistics were compared, the religious cheaters would be outnumbered by the political cheaters. Although Pandit Nehru had been right in warning of religious fraud, the warning could not be effective without the throughout reform of spiritual institutions, and that reform could be only accomplished only with the cooperation of government leaders. Bhaktivedanta Swami quoted from his letter in which he had asked Prime Minister Nehru to take up the study of Bhagavad Gita, but as he informed his Back to Godhead readers, Pandit Nehru had never replied because of his lack of spiritual knowledge. He thought that this intuition, the League of Devotees, might be something like the so many matas and temples, which have become a source of the headache for the Pandit.
Navya, are you up?
Sorry.
Bhaktivedanta, yeah.
Bhaktivedanta Swami charged the Pandit Nehru thought that any spiritual organization is a dungeon for accumulating public funds and then misuse it for questionable purposes. He, however, approves of the so-called those who do social service and talk nonsense in the spiritual science. This is because he has no depth of spiritual knowledge for himself, although he is a Brahmin and a Pandit. Ignorance in spiritual knowledge is the qualification of the Sudras. Sudras are the laboring class.
Unamas. Arna, go ahead.
He requested Pandit Nehru not to be afraid of the word God or Krishna, but we can assure him that there is no such cause of fear, because Krishna is everyone's friend and able to render real help to everyone. Bhaktivedanta Swami ended by suggesting that immoral practices were not confined only to the temples of India, but were common to materialistic civilizations all over the world. In particular, he cited the disturbances amongst youth that were becoming rampant in the 1960s. The best thing will be for the physician to heal himself first. Because in godless civilization, while the occupants of the matas and temples have been the cause of headache for the pandit, the same thing under a different label has become the cause of headache for other European and Asian statesmen. The unbridled youngsters of those countries under the name Teddy Boys in England, the rebels without cause in America, and the Hastrong in Germany, the leather jackets in Sweden, the children of the sun in Japan, and the style boys in the USSR are some of the byproducts of a godless civilization, and that is the root cause of all headache that requires a thorough treatment. At Chippiwada, Bhaktivedanta Swami followed much the same daily schedule as Keshi Gata, except that with Krishna Pandit doing some of the secretarial work for Back to Godhead, he was free to devote more hours to the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Krishna Pandit. He used to translate Srimad Bhagavatam before dawn, about 3 a.m. In the beginning, there was no typewriter, but then he arranged a portable typewriter. He would do his daily work and then cook his food himself. I arranged raw materials for his cooking. Sometimes he used to come to my family, asking my wife to get some food. Sometimes he would also bathe at 5 or 6 in the afternoon. Every day he was typing, and he himself was reading some Bhagavatam. And he was going down in the temple for darshan, then he was going outside, sometimes returning at 2 or 4 in the afternoon. Then he was typing and sending the proofs of Back to Godhead to a place and checking them. He was doing by hand all this type of work. His main activity was typing many hours a day. Bhaktivedanta Swami worked from a Sanskrit and Bengali Bhagavatam, edited by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and a large book containing the original commentaries of 12 great acharyas. He had a standard format. He made a Roman transliteration of the Sanskrit Devanagari script, then word for word English synonyms and English prose translation, and finally his English purport on that verse. Before writing his own purport, however, he would consult the commentaries of the acharyas, especially Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Jiva Goswami, Vijaya Dwaja Tirtha, and Sridhar Swami.
He contemplated the size of the project he was attempting. The Bhagavatam contained 18,000 verses. The first canto's 17 chapters would fill 3 volumes of 400 pages each, and the second canto, with 10 chapters, would take 2 volumes. Up through the 9th canto, there would be maybe 30 volumes. The 10th canto, containing 90 chapters, would take 20 volumes. There were 12 cantos, and so the total would be at least 60 volumes. He thought he might be able to finish in 5 to 7 years. If the Lord keeps me physically fit, then in the fulfillment of Srila Prabhupada's I could complete this work. He decided to introduce the first volume with a biographical sketch of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the ideal preacher of the Bhagavatam. The reader could best appreciate the Bhagavatam by seeing its practical demonstration in the life of Lord Chaitanya. The special feature of Lord Chaitanya's presentation had been his desire that Srimad Bhagavatam be preached in every nook and corner of the world by everyone who happens to take his birth in India. Lord Chaitanya had called Srimad Bhagavatam the spotless Purana, and had considered the chanting and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam along with the Hare Krishna mantra to be a complete scientific process for developing pure love of God. Working from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhagavata, Bhaktivedanta Swami gave a 50-page synopsis of Lord Chaitanya's life and his Sankirtana movement. He described Lord Chaitanya's divine ecstasies, his philosophical confrontations with leading scholars of the day, and his inauguration of the Sankirtana movement, the congregational chanting of the holy name. Bhaktivedanta Swami especially connected Lord Chaitanya's life and teachings to what he saw as the present crucial time in history. Help for humanity in this momentous hour of need lay in the Vedic literature, and especially in Srimad Bhagavatam.
We know that the foreign invaders of India could break down some of the monumental architectural work in India, but they were unable to break up the perfect ideals of human civilization so far kept hidden within the Sanskrit language of Vedic wisdom. The Sanskrit language had protected the secret for 4,000 of centuries, but now the secret had to be released to the world. As he approached the first verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhaktivedanta Swami became absorbed in the Bhagavatam's purpose. The verses stress that the Bhagavatam alone could save society from the evil influences of the age of Kali. Srimad Bhagavatam's recommendation for this age was simply to hear from the pure devotees about the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna.
As he approached the first verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhaktivedanta Swami became absorbed in the Bhagavatam's purpose. The verses stress that the Bhagavatam alone could save society from the evil influences of the age of Kali. Srimad Bhagavatam's recommendation for this age was simply to hear from the pure devotees about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The setting of the Bhagavatam was a gathering of sages at Naimisharanya about 5,000 years ago at the dawn of the present age of Kali. Foreseeing the degradation of humanity, the sages asked the senior member of the assembly, Sutta Goswami, now that Lord Krishna, the shelter of all religious principles, has returned to his spiritual abode, where are religious principles to be found? Sutta's answer was that the epic Srimad Bhagavatam, which is as brilliant as the sun, was a literary incarnation of God and would give direction to persons lost in the dense darkness of Kali Yuga. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva, under the instruction of his spiritual master, Narada Muni, sat down and entered a deep meditation. In trance, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his energies, and the suffering souls of Kali Yuga. He also saw that the remedy for their suffering was pure devotional service. With this vision and the instructions of his spiritual master as his inspiration, Vyasadeva set about to compile Srimad Bhagavatam to give the highest benefit to the suffering souls of Kali Yuga. And now mightily for the close.
In presenting the literary incarnations of God, Srimad Bhagavatam, for the benefit of the Western world, Bhaktivedanta Swami realized that he was performing an important task, following the footsteps of Srila Vyasadeva. As Srila Vyasadeva had a vision of Krishna and had received direction from his spiritual master before beginning his literary mission, Bhaktivedanta Swami had his vision and had received instructions from his spiritual master. Bhaktivedanta Swami envisioned distributing in mass the books of Srila Vyasadeva. He would not merely translate it; he would personally take it to the West, present it, and teach people in the West through the book in person how to develop pure love of God. Srila Prabhupada. The Communist Party has become popular simply by distributing their literatures. In Kolkata, the communist agents were inviting friends and reading their literature. The Russians never came to India, but by distributing literature in every language, they got a pretty good number of followers. If it is possible for an ordinary third-class mundane literature, why shouldn't transcendental literature create devotees all over the world? There is good potency for pushing on these literatures very vigorously from village to village. The Bhagavad Dharma is the original religion of human society. Whatever Whatever else may be passing as religion has come from the Vedic literature. People are after these books. They are hankering for them. Lord Chaitanya said that in every town and village on the surface of the world, they will know the message of the Sankirtan movement. This means that in every town and village all over the world, there are many candidates who are awaiting this message. It is transcendental literature. Nobody can challenge it. It is done so nicely without any spot, the spotless Purana. Bhaktivedanta Swami put his faith in Srimad Bhagavatam, giving up almost all other kinds of missionary activities, and this has been the advice and example of his spiritual master and of Lord Chaitanya. They had not been interested in building costly temples or in creating many neophyte disciples. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had stressed preaching. Preaching meant books, and the best book was Srimad Bhagavatam. To write and publish the Bhagavatam for the enlightenment of the general populace was real service to the Lord. That was Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's opinion. He had preferred publishing books to establish temples, and he had specifically told his disciples to write books. It was the business of advanced empowered devotees to write books, publish them, and distribute them widely. A program to distribute transcendental literature everywhere with even more expertise than communists would create a great positive effect on the people of Europe and America. If the Europeans and Americans turned to Krishna consciousness, then the rest of the world would follow. Bhakti Vedanta Swami continued working alone in his room at Chapivarda, absorbed in thought of spreading the news of Krishna on a scale never before attempted.
Sharon, we're going to have to put you in first in the line for next time because we're almost to the end. And we have a little bit of time. Thank you, everyone, for the readings. And thank you, Shriyan, for volunteering for another one. Really nicely done. Deeply absorbing, isn't it? Does anybody have any reflections from the reading? Anything that's stuck in your mind? Haridas?
I was surprised, kind of like how Prabhupada he was always targeting the very big politicians, and he knew what was on their mind, and he knew at what point to contact them and at what about to contact them. So that way, he was also trying to make them also devotees and Vaishnavas for the benefit of mankind. So it's like Prabhupada is expert in everything basically. How he even he knows this also, like how to get someone to help him or how to get someone to spread Krishna consciousness, and how he was also utilizing that government officer in helping him to preach about Krishna consciousness. So
Wow.
that was it was.
Yeah, very interesting and interesting comment. It's so true also. It's impressive how he was fearless in that. He didn't mind. Of course, he minded, I'm sure, that they didn't write back many times. He wrote to Gandhi also, who didn't write back, but Prabhupada didn't hesitate in giving his direction to people who can make a big difference. It's a nice point, Haridas. Chaitanya Nitai Nam.
Hare Krishna. Uh I was looking at the earlier in this reading where it was talking about the anti-material world, that concept that scientists were propagating at the time. And I like the fact that Srila Prabhupada caught uh, a glimpse of that kind of terminology being used and immediately was reminded of the spiritual eternal world, although that wasn't what they were necessarily referring to. But just it shines a light on how Prabhupada generally just applied these Western methods of preaching and just communicating ideas that would maybe be articulated in a different way within India versus in like preaching to Westerners. I think he took a really uh, different approach with how he formulated different kinds of ideas and everything in these books that small books like Easy Journey to Other Planets and Beyond Birth and Death and all these smaller books. It's so interesting to read through some of them now. It's like after, more exposure to Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, the way he was planting these little seeds with these other little books, it was just really interesting. And seeing the sort of roots of where that concept for Easy Journey came from was really nice in this reading.
I could testify as a young Westerner at the time, when I first saw the advertisement for Easy Journey to Other Planet, it attracted me. I it's such a bold title, Easy Journey to Other Planets. I mean, I don't think about it now because I'm so used to the title, but when I first saw it, I said, wait a minute, I got to read that book right away. It was available at the bookstore at that time, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. So I really resonate with what you're saying, how Prabhupada was thoughtful about how to present concepts that would attract the Western mindset. Fantastic. Thank you for your reflections, Chaitanya Nityanam. Maithili.
Hare Krishna. I really loved how Srila Prabhupada, he always like dreamed big. And I feel like if you dream big, that like keeps you going and then you eventually like reach your goal. And Srila Prabhupada did that. So I just really like that one.
Yeah, there's a lyric in a musical from America called South Pacific, and it said, if you don't have a dream, how are you going to have a dream come true? It's what makes life exciting. If you have a worthy dream, a worthy goal to work for throughout your life. Nice point, Maithili. Thanks a lot. Arav.
Hare Krishna. I just found it nice how Prabhupada was able to see some scientists' research from the Nobel Prize about antimatter and antimaterial, and he was able to use that to create his newest book, Easy Journey to Other Planets, which is just very good use of Yukta Vairagya.
Nice point. Really good point, Arav. Thanks a lot. Rajaras Bhavana.
I was reflecting on how Prabhupada moved on from that Sunday program that he was doing with Krishna Pandit and his friends
Mm.
and family. That was very interesting because what I noticed was it shows how Prabhupada had priorities and he had a vision of what he wanted to accomplish. And even though it's all transcendental, it's all Krishna Katha and it's wonderful, uh, he realized that this isn't big enough or it's not worth his time because of where his um his direction was headed. And so I found that very interesting where Prabhupada had this he showed by example, like critically think, reprioritize, and even like cut back on various things depending on what his own goal is and how to please his own spiritual master.
An astute observation, and it really helps for us in retrospect to read this and gain that insight that Prabhupada was very strategic and careful about who he gave his time to. It wasn't just arbitrary. Fantastic. Thank you, Brajaras Bhavana. Akshita.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I found it interesting when it pointed out the similarities between Vyasadeva and Srila Prabhupada, because it said that Vyasadeva, they were similar because Vyasadeva would also follow the instructions of his guru, and like Prabhupada also followed the instructions of his guru to like spread Krishna consciousness like to the entire world. So like it's kind of like a lesson that we should also follow the instructions of our guru, because if we like please our guru, then Krishna will automatically be pleased.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. You could write a lot about that. There's so many instances in the Bhagavatam. Remember when Indra was sitting on the throne, Brihaspati came in, his guru did, and Indra didn't stand up, didn't offer any respect, and then he lost all his power, lost heaven. Meanwhile, Shukracharya, even though he's considered to be a substandard guru, obviously comes out in the pastime of Amadev because the demons were adhered so carefully to his instruction, they got power. This is the principle itself is potent. Nice point. Keshav.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So my point is that like throughout the Lilamrita and today's reading, so Prabhupada is just trying to give out Krishna consciousness in India. Like even though his Guru Maharaj told him to go give it in the West, he is giving it in India. He's trying because he's thinking that he could get it done in India, and then I don't know, like he's trying to give out books in India, but Krishna's like forcing him towards to go to the West because like whoever he meets, like whoever he writes to, they don't reply back. Whoever he meets just have other obligations and they can't do as much as he would like to have to happen. So I'm just noticing that Krishna is just like showing him that just follow what your guru has told you, that you should go to the West because like you can't really like attain stuff here right now.
Yeah, there was that whole incident when in Jhansi he started the League of Devotees. And although he tried to hold on to it there, as he was moving forward with the best information he had, that slipped out of his hands. One thing led to another. Although he did have designs on going to the West, it's one of the points where there's evidence that he was preparing the books because he wouldn't go anywhere without them, and even the West. But still, Krishna's so helpful to his devotee that moves him along or her along in such a way that can attain such a devotee can attain the perfection of following the guru's orders. Okay, Navya for the close. Navya, we can't hear you. Well, maybe. Are you there? Navya, Navya. Earth to Navya. Come in, Navya. Thank you, everybody. I was thinking today, we we went down to a shopping area and we distributed books there. And then we went to an apartment complex. And first door I knocked on, this guy came out, he had been eating breakfast. He's still chewing and opened the door, but he didn't mind. And I think there must have been about 15 of us outside his door. And I showed him the Bhagavad Gita and he was so appreciative. He gave $20 and he went inside. And it just occurred to me in my mind about how, were you there, Manya, for that guy? I told him he looked like George Clooney. He
Yeah,
said, if I had more money, I'd give you more just for that.
yeah.
He did look like George Clooney. So anyway, it was funny because it wasn't funny. It was pleasant. But what I was thinking of while we were reading these things, the problems there in Chippewa typing and all the trouble he took to put it together. And then here it is, still going in somebody's house in some obscure place. I mean, I didn't even know where that place is. Where were we anyway? Santa Clara?
It was Campbell.
Campbell, yeah. I mean, Campbell's not even on the world map, you know. But still, some guy living in some little obscure apartment opens the door, gets Prabhupada's book from Chippewa, and all the association of Prabhupada, it goes right in there, closes the door, and because he was so pleasant with the devotees and generous, giving a donation, it's going to have a major impact on his life. That is really a satisfying service to be able to do that. And I just wanted to mention to all of you that today, in a couple hours, we're joining an international call. Of course, you're all invited if you want to join, but it'll probably be late for some of you. But it's to kick off, for better lack of a better term, the Bhadra Purnima. Bhadra Purnima is already in play, but this is the first of our calls out to the rest of the world, joining with leaders from various places. Tonight will be Oceania, where we have Australia, New Zealand, then we have Taiwan, Hong Kong, Japan, and so forth, because you can't do both at the same time. Times are too off. And then tomorrow morning, we'll do the rest of the world, including America, India, and everything like that. And we'll be consulting with the leaders, different places, see how they're preparing for the Bhadra Purnima marathon of distributing Srimad Bhagavatams. So you're all invited. It's another dream Prabhupada had to get the Bhagavatam out to the world. And we have the opportunity while we're still here on the planet to do what we can. So just meditate on it, pray for it. And if anybody want to join the calls at any time, please feel free to jump on. Is there a link somewhere? Maybe let me check really quick since I just invited everybody. I better give you a link in case you can come at some point in your life. Hold on. Oh, you got it. Thanks. There it is. Thank you, everybody who helped to put on today's program. Deeply grateful. Chaitanya Nitai Nam, Rajaras Bhavana, Anapayani Bhakti, Manya, who I don't know everybody behind the scenes who's doing everything to keep it going. And thanks for keeping it going too. It's really important. KTTVG, keep the transzone vibration going. Everything good comes from that. And I'm going to be in town for a few weeks or more. So I look forward to catching up. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Radha Govinda, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, Shri Shri, who would like to add the name of their deities?
Radha Madhav.
Jagannath Baladev Subhadra.
Huh?
Jagannath Baladev Subhadra.
Jagannath Baladev Subhadra,
Nitai Gaura Hari.
Jai Gaurahari,
Radha
Radha
Madhav.
Kunja Bihari.
Radha Kunja Bihari,
Radha Madhav.
Radha Madhav, Radha Madhav twice. If you so desire, please fulfill the spiritual desires of everyone who joined Youth Jam today, everyone who thought about joining Youth Jam, even those who've accidentally slept through it, that they may always be engaged in the Sankirtan movement, and may they feel enthusiasm for hearing, chanting, and distributing Krishna consciousness all over the world. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Panchakalpavrisha kripa sindhaveva patitanam bhavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha nattakoti vaishnavini ki jai. Gaur Premanande Haribo. KTTVG.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for joining UTM today. We hope to see you next week at the same time.